the galaxy was once full of promise for humanity. In the early days, when Earth first made contact with alien civilizations, there was hope that mankind had finally found a place among the stars. The Galactic Council welcomed them politely, but never with warmth. To most species, humans were fragile, a young race born on a small blue planet, fighting with themselves more than they ever worked together. The Council watched Earth struggle with war, poverty, and division, and whispered that mankind would not last long. And when Earth asked for help, real help, the kind that could save millions, the Council looked away. For years, Earth begged for aid after disasters. A deadly plague swept across continents, but the Council sent no medicine. Famine followed when Earth's crops failed under strange weather, but no grain ships came from alien worlds. When the oceans rose and cities drowned, no one offered advanced technology to stop the floods. The Council had decided humanity was weak, unworthy, and a waste of resources. They had richer allies, stronger empires, and older civilizations to protect. Earth was left to suffer in silence. Generations passed, and the pain of betrayal grew. Children were told stories of the Council that had turned its back. Old men remembered watching broadcasts of alien leaders making excuses, claiming Earth was too unstable, too dangerous, too primitive to be worth saving. Humanity's requests for aid were quietly buried under endless Council debates. One day, the Council said, when humans are ready, we will welcome them fully. But Earth knew the truth. They were never going to help. Still, humanity did not die. Against all odds, Earth survived every disaster, every plague, every famine. People united in ways no one had expected. Enemies who once fought over borders now stood side by side because survival demanded it. Scientists who had been ignored by the Council worked in secret, unlocking technologies no one thought possible. Industry grew stronger, armies became more disciplined, and space programs expanded. Humanity had been forced to stand alone, and in doing so, it had found its strength. The Council did not notice. To them, Earth was forgotten, a quiet, unimportant world with no voice in galactic affairs. Other empires rose and fell, new wars burned across the stars, and the galaxy kept moving. But on the edge of that galaxy, Earth never forgot. Every insult, every refusal, every cry for help that went unanswered became fuel for something greater. Humanity learned, adapted, and remembered. In secret, something new began to form. It started small, research stations hidden in the asteroid belt, experimental ships that never appeared on any official registry, and scientists who no longer cared for Council approval. The governments of Earth, once divided, formed a united project that no alien eyes were allowed to see. This was not about survival anymore. This was about never being weak again. Deep in Earth's orbit, massive structures began to rise. They were not trade stations or peaceful colonies. They were shipyards, built to craft vessels larger than anything humanity had ever made. The workers spoke in whispers, their voices full of quiet pride. They knew what they were building would change everything. These were not ships of exploration. They were ships of war. Stories began to spread among traders who passed near Earth's system. Strange signals were detected in the dark, powerful bursts of energy unlike anything known. Some claimed to see ghostly shadows of ships moving faster than light. Others laughed and said humans could never build such things. The Council ignored these rumors, dismissing them as nonsense. To them, humanity was still weak, still divided, still nothing. But the truth was different. Humanity had built something the galaxy could not imagine. The first of the hidden warships was completed in silence. It left Earth's orbit with no announcement, vanishing into the cold void where no Council patrol would find it. One ship became two, two became a fleet, and the fleet vanished into the black like a shadow waiting to strike. Back on Earth, children were no longer told stories of weakness. They were told of survival, of strength, of betrayal that would one day be answered. In every city, in every school, the message was the same. Never again would humanity beg. Never again would they kneel. The galaxy had turned its back, and one day, Earth would return, not as a forgotten world, but as a storm no one could stop. The Council still believed humanity was harmless. They believed Earth was too poor, too small, too broken to ever matter. They were wrong. Deep in the void, warships moved in silence. Their hulls were black as night, their weapons untested but deadly, their crews sworn to secrecy. Humanity had become patient, waiting, preparing, watching. And in that silence, something dangerous grew. Resentment turned to determination. Determination turned to power. Power turned to vengeance. The galaxy had abandoned Earth, but Earth had not forgotten. It had learned to survive alone. It had learned to grow strong. And soon, the galaxy would learn a lesson it would never forget. For now, the stars were quiet. The Council sat in its grand chambers, debating minor trade disputes, laughing at the idea of humans ever being a threat. But in the shadows, far from their eyes, humanity's fleet was ready. Engines burned silently, weapons waited to be unleashed, and captains trained for the war to come. The time of weakness was over. The time of silence was ending. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, believing that mankind would fade away, forgotten and broken. But Earth had risen from the ashes. Earth had endured every trial. And now, in the darkness beyond the Council's reach, humanity whispered a new oath: not anymore. The years passed like shadows drifting across the stars, and humanity never forgot the day the galaxy turned away from them. Every generation carried the same story in their hearts, the story of how Earth begged for help and was left to die. Grandparents told their grandchildren about the day the Council looked at Earth's suffering and decided it was not worth their time. Fathers told sons about the floods that drowned cities while alien ships full of technology sailed past without stopping. Mothers told daughters about the sickness that burned through villages while the galaxy kept its medicine locked behind walls of bureaucracy. The memory of betrayal was passed like fire, and that fire did not fade. It grew. It burned hotter with each passing year. Humanity carried scars that no other race understood. These scars did not weaken them, they forged them. Where other civilizations forgot old pains, Earth remembered every one. In the ashes of betrayal, a new will was born, a will to never again depend on the mercy of others. The Council thought they had abandoned a weak species, but what they had truly created was something far more dangerous, a united humanity with nothing left to lose. For centuries, Earth had been divided. Nations fought each other for power, for land, for resources. But after the betrayal, the truth became clear. No enemy on Earth was as dangerous as the galaxy beyond. Slowly, painfully, humanity began to change. Old borders started to fade. Ancient grudges began to weaken. For the first time, people realized they could no longer afford to hate each other when the true enemy was the one that had abandoned them. A strange unity formed, not through peace, but through shared anger. The betrayal of the Council did what no war, no treaty, no speech had ever done: it united the human race. On the surface, Earth still looked weak. Cities were rebuilt after storms, farms grew again after droughts, and ships left for the colonies. But behind the surface, in hidden bunkers and underground labs, something else was taking shape. Governments joined together in secret councils, building projects that never appeared in any official record. Scientists who had once begged for council funding now worked in silence, fueled by nothing but determination. Engineers dismantled old satellites and turned them into weapons. Colonies on the Moon and Mars became more than settlements. They became foundries and research stations. Everything was built with one goal in mind: never again would humanity kneel. But anger is a dangerous fuel. As the years stretched into centuries, anger hardened into something colder. It became vengeance. And that vengeance became part of the human spirit. Children were raised with it, taught in schools how the galaxy abandoned them. The Council had not only denied help, they had mocked Earth. Records survived of alien ambassadors laughing in their chambers, saying humanity would never rise above its primitive wars. To the aliens, humans were a failure of evolution, a species too weak to matter. Those words became weapons. Every child heard them, every soldier memorized them, every leader carried them. Humanity did not forget. Humanity did not forgive. The galaxy did not notice. To them, humanity was silent. They believed Earth had accepted its fate, that it would remain a small, unimportant world on the edge of space. They believed the humans had bowed their heads and moved on. But the silence was not surrender. It was preparation. Earth was watching, waiting, building. For every insult, a new design was drawn. For every refusal, a new weapon was forged. For every abandoned plea, a new warship was laid down in hidden docks. The betrayal had planted seeds of steel and fire, and those seeds were growing into something the galaxy was not ready to face. And then the shadows began to move. Traders who crossed near the Sol system whispered of strange things. They claimed to see flashes of light far out in the asteroid belt, as if great engines were testing in secret. They spoke of signals, encrypted bursts that vanished before any receiver could capture them. Some swore they saw massive shapes drifting in the dark, silent and cold, their hulls black as night. The council dismissed these stories as rumors, calling them the drunken tales of smugglers. But deep down, unease began to grow. Because even though they laughed, no one could explain why entire patrols sometimes went missing near the human colonies. No one could explain why wreckage was found floating with burns that no known weapon could make. The council chose not to look too closely, because looking too closely meant facing a truth they did not want to face. Humanity was changing. Back on Earth, a new kind of culture had formed. Songs were written not about peace, but about survival. Poems were not about hope, but about strength. Every piece of art, every monument, every history book carried the same message. Humanity stands alone, but humanity endures. The betrayal had broken the chains of weakness, and now Earth was teaching its children to become stronger than any generation before them. To be human now meant to remember the betrayal, to carry the ashes of the past, and to turn that pain into power. And power was coming. The first of the hidden fleets had already left orbit, crewed by men and women sworn to secrecy. They traveled into the void where no alien eyes could follow, their ships built from metals pulled out of asteroids, their engines powered by designs stolen and improved from alien wrecks. Every fleet that left carried the anger of Earth with it. They were not explorers. They were shadows preparing for war. The galaxy did not know it, but the countdown had already begun. The council, blind and arrogant, still debated trade taxes and border disputes in their shining halls. They still believed humanity was a child race, too small to matter. They still believed Earth was weak, still begging for scraps. But Earth was not begging anymore. Earth was not waiting anymore. Earth was not weak anymore. The ashes of betrayal had become the steel of vengeance. Humanity had forged its pain into weapons, its scars into armor, its anger into fleets. And somewhere in the black, far beyond the eyes of the council, a warship drifted in silence, its weapons armed, its engines ready, its crew whispering the words that had been passed down for generations. The galaxy turned its back on us. Not anymore. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers began to spread like a sickness no one could cure. It started small, with stories told by traders and smugglers who passed through the empty reaches near human space. They claimed to have seen things, shadows moving across the stars where no fleet should exist, signals flashing in patterns no alien computer could decode, strange bursts of energy that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Most dismissed the stories at first, calling them lies told by men who drank too much or feared the silence of the void. But the stories did not stop. They grew louder, repeated on distant worlds, carried from station to station, until even the proud ears of the council could not ignore them. Something was happening on the edge of known space, and that something always carried the same name whispered in fear: humanity. The council laughed when the first reports reached them. They told themselves humans were still weak, still too primitive to matter. But inside their chambers, some voices grew uneasy. Patrol ships had gone missing near the Sol system. Outposts that once sent reports now sent only silence. The wreckage that was found told no clear story. Burned metal, shattered hulls, strange weapon scars that matched nothing in the council's arsenal. The official reports labeled them accidents or pirate attacks, but deep down, the truth gnawed at those who read the details. These were not accidents. These were not pirates. Something new was moving in the void. And whatever it was, it left no survivors. Traders told of ships unlike any they had seen. Some described them as massive shadows, larger than battleships, with hulls black as the void itself. Others swore they saw vessels appear and vanish as if the stars themselves bent around them. A few spoke of weapons so powerful that entire pirate fleets were erased in seconds, leaving nothing but silence where once there had been battle. The council mocked these claims in public, but behind closed doors, they began to whisper too. Could it be true? Could the humans, the species they had abandoned centuries ago, have risen in secret? It was impossible, or so they told themselves. Yet the evidence grew. A lone scout ship returned from the edge of human space, its captain pale with fear. He claimed he had seen an entire fleet drifting in the black, waiting. He spoke of strange symbols painted on the hulls, symbols of Earth, but twisted, harder, sharper, carrying not the promise of peace but the weight of vengeance. The captain begged the council to listen, to prepare, to understand that humanity was no longer what they thought. But his words were ignored. The council decided he was unstable, his mind broken by the long journey. He was silenced, his ship decommissioned, his story buried. Still, the whispers did not die. They grew stronger. Across the stars, fear began to spread. Small colonies near human space started to prepare defenses, afraid of what might come. Pirates, once eager to raid human settlements, now turned their ships away, unwilling to test the rumors. Mercenaries who once joked about humans now refused contracts that brought them near Earth's borders. Slowly, the galaxy began to realize that something was wrong. The silence of the humans was not weakness. It was preparation. The galaxy had turned its back, but now the galaxy could feel eyes watching from the dark. Meanwhile, on Earth, the whispers were heard too. Humanity listened with satisfaction as the galaxy trembled at shadows they did not yet understand. The hidden fleets had not even revealed their full strength, and still the galaxy was afraid. Leaders smiled in secret, knowing their plan was working. They had built their armada in silence, and now the silence itself had become a weapon. Fear spread faster than any missile, any laser, any ship. Fear was the first victory, and humanity had won it without firing a single shot. But not all whispers came from fear. Some came from desperation. A few alien races who had once voted against helping Earth now remembered their choice with regret. They sent messages, small and cautious, asking if humanity might forgive, might still accept alliances. None of those messages were answered. Earth remained silent. That silence was louder than any reply. It told the galaxy that humanity remembered, and humanity had not forgiven. One night, in the heart of the council chamber, as delegates argued over trade disputes and border patrols, a strange signal interrupted the meeting. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. A voice, human, speaking in simple words that cut through every translation system like a blade through glass. The voice said only one thing: "We remember." The signal vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. No one could trace it. No one could explain it. And no one dared to speak for several long minutes. That night, for the first time in centuries, the council feared Earth. Still, pride and arrogance are hard to break. Many in the council dismissed the signal as a trick, a prank by pirates, a lie to spread chaos. They told themselves humans could not possibly have the power to send such a message across light years. They told themselves humans were still small, still weak, still divided. But not all believed it. Quietly, in private chambers, old empires began to prepare for war. Fleets were reinforced, weapons upgraded, spies dispatched to human space. And yet, no matter how hard they searched, they found nothing. The humans were ghosts, and ghosts cannot be hunted. Among the common people of the galaxy, however, the whispers grew into something else: legends. Stories spread of a human fleet so fast it could appear anywhere, of human weapons that could burn through any shield, of human captains who swore vengeance with every breath. Children on alien worlds began to fear the night sky, wondering if the humans were already out there, watching. Merchants avoided the trade routes near Sol, afraid their ships would never return. And slowly, very slowly, the galaxy realized that the humans they had once abandoned were not gone. They were coming back. And deep in the void, far from any council eye, the truth waited. Warships drifted in silence, their crews ready, their weapons armed. Humanity had no need to rush. Fear was spreading for them, softening the galaxy before the first strike. The council still believed they could control the future, but they were wrong. The whispers were already too strong, too deep, too loud. Humanity had planted fear in the heart of the galaxy, and fear was only the beginning. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, and now the galaxy trembled in the dark, afraid of shadows. But humanity was not a shadow. Humanity was real, and soon the galaxy would see the truth with its own eyes. The whispers of fear would become screams of war, and the stars themselves would burn. In the endless black of space, far beyond the eyes of the council, something vast and terrible was taking shape. Humanity had worked in silence for generations, hiding its true strength behind walls of secrecy and shadows. The galaxy thought Earth was quiet because it was weak, but silence had never meant weakness. It meant preparation. In the asteroid fields of the outer system, massive shipyards had been carved into the rock, invisible to passing eyes. In the frozen wastes of distant moons, hidden foundries thundered day and night, forging armor and weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Entire worlds had been turned into factories, their skies filled with smoke, their ground trembling with the weight of industry. And all of it was for one purpose: to build the Armada. The Armada was not like the fleets of the Council. Where alien ships were sleek, shining, and designed to impress, human ships were brutal, angular, and built only for war. Their hulls were layered with black armor that swallowed light, making them invisible against the stars. Their engines were designed not for beauty but for speed and sudden bursts of power. And their weapons were monsters. Cannons that could tear through planetary shields, missiles that hunted like predators, and something far worse, dark energy devices that bent the laws of physics themselves. Humanity had taken scraps of technology stolen from alien wrecks, improved them with relentless innovation, and then combined them with ideas no alien mind had ever considered. The result was a fleet that should not exist, a fleet that no one was ready to face. Each ship carried not just weapons, but history. On their walls were etched the names of the cities the Council had abandoned, the plagues they had ignored, the disasters they had refused to help stop. Every captain carried with them the memory of betrayal. Every crew member had been raised on stories of suffering, on lessons carved from pain. To serve on these ships was not just duty, it was vengeance. They called themselves the Silent Armada, because they moved in shadows, spoke only when needed, and revealed nothing to the galaxy. Their silence was their strength, and their silence was their warning. The first test of this armada came quietly. A Council scout vessel wandered too close to the asteroid belt near Jupiter. Its sensors caught something strange, an energy reading far too powerful for any mining station. Curious, the scout followed the trail. And then, from the dark, a shape emerged. It was massive, a shadow that blotted out the stars, its hull as black as midnight. For a moment, the scout's crew could not believe what they were seeing. No human ship should be this size. No human ship should burn with this kind of power. But before they could even send a signal, the shadow moved. A single burst of light tore across the void, and the scout ship was gone, erased from existence. No wreckage, no survivors, no warning. The Armada had revealed itself for only a second, and then vanished back into silence. The Council noticed the missing scout, of course. They investigated, they debated, they wrote reports. But as always, they convinced themselves it was nothing. A pirate attack, perhaps, or a navigation failure. They told themselves humanity was still too weak to matter. And while they lied to themselves, the Armada grew larger, stronger, deadlier. More ships rolled out of the hidden docks. Frigates, destroyers, carriers, and above them all, the behemoths. These Titan-class warships were the pride of Earth, vessels so huge they dwarfed the largest alien battleships. Entire cities could fit inside their hulls. Their weapons were enough to shatter moons. And they drifted in silence, their engines quiet, their weapons armed, waiting for the day when silence would end. Among the crews of the Armada, there was no fear, only purpose. They had been chosen, trained since childhood to serve. They knew their mission. They knew their enemy. And they knew that when the time came, they would not hesitate. The galaxy had abandoned their ancestors, and now the descendants of those forgotten generations carried the power to reshape the stars. For now, they waited. For now, they stayed in the dark. But patience is a weapon, and silence is the sharpest blade of all. Whispers spread once more through the galaxy. Traders claimed entire fleets of alien pirates had vanished near human space. Patrols sent to investigate returned with strange reports of being followed by shadows too large to be real. Some claimed they saw weapons charging in the void, only for the lights to fade before they could react. Fear spread faster than truth, and the truth was already terrifying. The silent Armada was real. The galaxy just did not know how real. Back on Earth, the leaders watched with calm eyes. They had no desire to reveal their power too soon. Let the Council mock them, let the galaxy laugh. Their silence was not weakness, it was the noose tightening around every arrogant neck. The Armada was ready, and the moment would come when humanity would no longer hide. That moment was close. The Council's ignorance was their greatest gift. And when the time came, humanity would return, not as beggars, not as the forgotten, but as the storm. In the cold of space, far from the shining halls of the Council, the silent Armada drifted in formation. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, millions of eyes staring into the void, waiting. Their black hulls reflected nothing, their engines whispered nothing, their presence revealed nothing. To the galaxy, they did not exist. But they were there. And one day soon, the silence would end, and the Armada would speak with fire. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity. The galaxy had left Earth to suffer. But in the silence of betrayal, Earth had built its revenge. The Armada was ready. And when it moved, the stars themselves would tremble. The galaxy still believed humanity was silent, still believed Earth was weak, but silence is not the same as surrender. In the cold void near the edge of human space, the first chance for the silent Armada to reveal itself finally came. It did not come from the Council, but from pirates, ruthless raiders who had long thought of human colonies as easy prey. These pirates had attacked before, burning settlements, stealing supplies, taking lives, because they knew the Council would never interfere. Humans, they thought, were helpless and defenseless. They believed Earth would once again beg for help that would never come. They did not know that this time would be different. The pirates came in strength, dozens of ships armed with plasma cannons and missile racks, descending on a young colony orbiting a red dwarf star. The colony was new, its defenses still incomplete, its people unprepared for war. In the past, this would have been a massacre. But this was no longer the past. This was the age of the silent Armada. The first distress signal left the colony, not for the Council, but for Earth itself. And Earth answered. From the darkness beyond the system, shadows stirred. At first the pirates did not notice. They were too busy laughing, too busy broadcasting their threats, too busy preparing to strip the colony bare. But then the stars behind them shifted. Engines lit for only a second, just enough to reveal outlines, vast black shapes moving with impossible speed. The pirates stopped laughing. Their scanners screamed warnings too late. A voice came across the void, human and cold, a voice that carried not fear but judgment. This is Earth. You should not have come here. And then the silence ended. The first strike of humanity's hidden fleet came like a storm. Beams of dark energy cut across the void, slicing through pirate shields as if they were paper. Missiles launched in perfect silence, vanishing from scanners only to reappear inside enemy formations. Ships that had once terrorized helpless colonies were torn apart in seconds, their hulls shattered, their crews lost to the black. The pirates tried to fight back, but their weapons could not even lock onto the human ships. The Armada moved too fast, too sharp, too precise. Every time the pirates turned to face their attackers, The shadows had already moved, striking from another angle. It was not a battle. It was an execution. The colony below watched in stunned silence as the sky lit with fire. For years they had lived in fear, always expecting to be left defenseless, always knowing that no one in the galaxy would come to protect them. But now, for the first time, they saw Earth's true power. They saw warships black as night, carrying the strength of a united humanity, tearing their enemies apart. The cheers began slowly, a few voices at first, then spreading until the entire colony shook with them. The people of Earth were no longer victims. They were warriors. The last pirate captain tried to flee. His ship burned its engines at full power, racing into the void. But he did not escape. The shadows followed. One human ship broke formation, chasing him with terrifying speed. A single message was sent to his bridge, a message that froze the captain where he stood. Tell the galaxy, humanity is awake. The pirate ship was left alive, crippled but not destroyed, its engines sparking, its weapons broken. It limped away, carrying with it the story of what it had seen. That captain would become the first unwilling messenger of humanity's return. Back on Earth, the leaders received the report. The first strike had been a success. Not a single colony life was lost. Not a single armada ship had fallen. The pirates were gone, their fleets erased in minutes. The message had been delivered, not in words but in fire. Humanity was no longer helpless. Humanity was no longer silent. The Armada had spoken, and the galaxy would soon hear its voice echo everywhere. In the council chambers, confusion spread as reports began to arrive. Pirate fleets had been destroyed, wiped out so completely that even their wreckage was hard to find. Survivors spoke of ships that moved like ghosts, weapons that no one understood, tactics that no one could match. The council debated endlessly, some insisting it was impossible, others arguing that the humans must have had help from some hidden ally. But there was no ally. There was only Earth. And those who remembered Earth's long silence began to realize the truth. The humans had been preparing for this moment all along. The first strike was small, just a battle against pirates. But its meaning was enormous. For centuries the galaxy had seen humanity as weak, as helpless, as a species unworthy of respect. Now they saw something different. They saw shadows in the dark. They saw fleets that should not exist. They saw weapons that broke their understanding of war. And above all, they saw a race that no longer asked for mercy. Humanity had shown its teeth, and the galaxy finally understood that it had made a mistake. But this was only the beginning. The silent armada had waited for generations, and it would not stop after one victory. Earth had struck once, and it would strike again. The pirates were only the first to feel its power. The council was next. Every insult, every betrayal, every moment of abandonment would be answered in fire. Humanity had been patient, but patience had ended. Now came vengeance. As the crippled pirate ship limped into council space, carrying its tale of destruction, the whispers returned, louder than ever before. Traitors repeated the story. Colonies spread it in fear. Soldiers listened in silence, wondering if they could ever face such power. The galaxy trembled, not because of what humanity had said, but because of what humanity had done. The first strike had shattered the illusion of weakness, and the truth was now undeniable. Humanity had risen. Humanity was coming. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, but now Earth was reaching back with fire. And this was only the first step. The stars would soon burn with war, and the silent armada would lead the way. The council chamber had always been a place of arrogance and calm, a place where powerful empires argued about taxes, trade routes, and petty border disputes while pretending they ruled the galaxy. For centuries, the mention of humanity was little more than a joke, a reminder of a weak and desperate species left to rot on its own dying world. But now, for the first time in living memory, the name of Earth echoed through the chamber in fear. The first strike had reached them. Reports poured in from broken pirate fleets and frightened traders, all carrying the same impossible story. The humans had returned, and they carried weapons no one understood. At first, the council refused to believe. They called the stories exaggerations, lies spread by criminals to stir chaos. But then the evidence arrived: wreckage from pirate ships burned by weapons that did not exist in any council design, sensor recordings of shadows that moved faster than light, and transmissions from survivors who could barely speak through their terror. Slowly, denial gave way to unease, and unease gave way to panic. The council chamber filled with shouts. Some demanded immediate action. "We must crush them now before they rise further," one delegate cried, his voice trembling. Others warned against it. "If these stories are true, humanity has grown stronger than we imagined. To attack them blindly would be suicide." The arguments thundered across the hall, but beneath all the noise was the same truth. No one had expected this. Humanity, the race they had abandoned, the race they had mocked, the race they had declared too weak to matter, had built a fleet in silence and struck with precision. They had not begged for help. They had not asked for permission. They had acted, and their action had shattered the illusion of weakness. The council demanded answers. How had humanity advanced so far without anyone noticing? How had they built such weapons, such ships, in secret? Spies were called in, reports were searched, archives were opened, but there were no answers. The humans had hidden their progress so well that even the most powerful intelligence networks had nothing. It was as if humanity had been invisible, a ghost moving in the dark, until it chose to reveal itself. That thought alone sent shivers through the council. If the humans could hide from them for so long, what else were they hiding now? One faction of the council, made up of older empires who had once voted to abandon Earth, argued that nothing had changed. "They are only one world," they insisted. "One world cannot stand against the weight of the galaxy. Crush them now, and it will end before it begins." But others were not so sure. "They are not one world anymore," came the reply. "They are united. They are building fleets. If we miscalculate, we may start a war we cannot finish." And in the shadows of the chamber, away from the shouting, some whispered a more dangerous thought. What if it is already too late? The panic spread beyond the chamber. Across the galaxy, colonies began to prepare defenses. Merchants changed their routes to avoid human space. Smaller governments that had once mocked Earth now quietly sent envoys, hoping to discover the truth before the storm arrived. Fear was contagious, and the first strike had infected the galaxy with it. For the first time in centuries, the Council was no longer seen as the unchallenged power of the stars. For the first time, people wondered if another force was rising. But humanity did not respond. No messages came from Earth, no demands, no threats, no explanations. Silence returned after the first strike, and that silence was worse than words. The Council could not predict what the humans wanted. Did they plan war against the Council itself? Did they seek revenge on those who had abandoned them? Or were they simply defending themselves? The silence gave no answers, and in that void of uncertainty, fear grew stronger. Then, one night, as the Council gathered in its great chamber, something happened that none of them would ever forget. The walls flickered, the screens that filled the chamber shifted, and for a moment the entire hall was filled with static. Delegates shouted in confusion, guards raised their weapons, but then the static cleared. A single face appeared. Human. Cold eyes stared out across the chamber, and a voice that needed no translation system spoke with terrifying clarity. "You turned your back on us. Not anymore." The face vanished, the screens went dark, and silence fell across the chamber. No one spoke for a long time. No one could. The Council had been mocked, humiliated, shown that the humans could reach into their most secure chamber and deliver a message. If they could do that, what else could they do? The panic was no longer hidden. Delegates left the chamber pale, their eyes full of fear. Armies were ordered to prepare. Fleets were sent to patrol the edges of human space. And still, the humans said nothing more. The silence was suffocating. Some in the Council tried to rally their courage. "We are still the strongest force in the galaxy," they declared. "If war comes, we will crush them." But even as they spoke, doubt lingered in their voices. They had believed humans were weak, and they had been wrong. What if they were wrong again? What if the Silent Armada was only the beginning? The Council had no answers, only fear. And so the galaxy held its breath. Every world, every station, every fleet waited, listening to the silence, wondering when the humans would strike again. The Council called it panic behind closed doors, but in the streets of alien cities it had another name. They called it the fear of Earth. And that fear was spreading faster than any fleet could fly. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity, but now the galaxy felt the weight of its mistake. The Silent Armada had struck once, and it would strike again. The Council trembled in its shining halls, and the people of 1,000 worlds whispered the same words in dread. Humanity has returned. The Council had hoped the message from humanity was only a threat, a warning meant to frighten them into giving respect, but deep inside, everyone knew the truth. The silence after the broadcast was not peace, it was preparation. Fleets were mobilized, soldiers armed, and orders sent across the stars. The Council would not wait for another strike. They would bring the fight to Earth before Earth could bring it to them. Massive warships, built from centuries of wealth and resources, gathered at the edge of human space. Thousands of guns and legions of soldiers stood ready, convinced that the humans would fall quickly once true force was unleashed. But when the first battle began, the galaxy learned it was not facing the same desperate species it had abandoned long ago. The war began not with speeches or negotiations but with fire. The Council fleet advanced on the border colony of New Carthage, expecting resistance to be light. Instead, they found the skies filled with shadows. Human warships emerged from the void, ships with designs no alien had ever seen, their hulls darker than space, their weapons glowing with strange light. The Council commander ordered the attack, confident in his numbers, but within moments the battle shifted. Human ships moved in ways that defied logic. They blinked in and out of existence, appearing behind Council cruisers before vanishing again. They struck from impossible angles, their weapons tearing through shields like they were paper. Whole formations collapsed under the storm of fire, and when the Council tried to regroup, they discovered their communications jammed, their signals scrambled by technologies they did not understand. Panic spread as entire squadrons disappeared, swallowed by the sudden strikes of the human fleet. For the first time in centuries, the Council suffered a defeat so complete that survivors fled without orders. The humans had not only defended their colony, they had humiliated the galaxy's greatest powers. But even more terrifying was what came after. The human fleet did not stay to celebrate or retreat to safety. Instead, it advanced. Colony after colony fell, not destroyed, but occupied with terrifying efficiency. Human soldiers marched through alien cities, silent and disciplined, planting the flag of Earth where no one believed it could ever stand. The Council tried to regroup, tried to rally their vast strength, but every counterattack ended in disaster. The humans were always one step ahead, as if they could predict every move. Some whispered that humanity had spies within the Council, others whispered something darker, that humans had developed machines that could read the future of battle. Whatever the truth, the effect was the same. The Council was losing, and losing badly. Back in the chamber, panic turned into desperation. Some demanded negotiations, others demanded extermination, but no one had answers. The old belief, that humanity was weak, was shattered forever. Now the galaxy saw a different face of Earth, united, relentless, merciless in its advance. The war was no longer about punishing humans for their defiance. It was about survival. Rumors spread like wildfire. Merchant ships told stories of human fleets appearing and vanishing in the blink of an eye. Soldiers told stories of human weapons that could cut through the strongest armor. Whole systems whispered the same words: the humans cannot be stopped. Fear spread faster than the war itself, infecting worlds that had never even seen a human. Some smaller empires broke from the Council, refusing to send their fleets into what they now believed was certain death. Others secretly sent envoys to humanity, hoping to survive by offering alliance. The galaxy was fracturing under the weight of the war, and humanity was the hammer striking the cracks. But Earth's leaders were not reckless. They did not destroy planets or slaughter civilians. Every strike was precise, every target chosen with care. They fought like a species that had learned from centuries of suffering. They knew the taste of betrayal, and now they delivered it back. When captured soldiers begged for mercy, they were spared, but always with a warning: tell your leaders. The age of ignoring Earth is over. And so the prisoners carried tales of both fear and discipline, of enemies who fought like ghosts but spared the weak. That combination made humanity more terrifying than any conqueror. They were not monsters. They were something worse. They were strategists. They were patient. They had a goal, and no one yet understood what it was. As the war raged, the council prepared for a final stand. A grand fleet, larger than any assembled in centuries, gathered near the star of Alt-Horus. Tens of thousands of ships, entire armadas from across the galaxy, united for one purpose: to crush humanity before it was too late. The council believed numbers would win where technology had failed. But when the battle began, numbers meant nothing. The human fleet did not meet the armada head-on. Instead, it scattered them, cutting through their lines like a knife. Blink drives tore apart formations, energy cannons burned through the heaviest shields, and swarms of drones filled the skies. The battle turned into chaos, and chaos was where humanity thrived. For every council ship destroyed, 10 more tried to hold the line, but it was no use. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove a point, that no one would ever abandon them again. When the smoke cleared, the council had suffered another crushing defeat. Entire fleets were gone, reduced to wreckage drifting in space. Humanity had lost ships too, but their victories were undeniable. The war had begun, and it was no longer a question of if the humans could fight. It was a question of how far they would go. Would they stop at defending their colonies? Would they strike only those who attacked them? Or would they keep pushing until the council itself fell? That question haunted every leader, every soldier, every citizen in the galaxy. The council had wanted a quick war to remind humanity of its place. Instead, they had unleashed a storm that threatened to rewrite the balance of power. The galaxy turned its back on Earth once, but now Earth had turned, and the fire of its wrath was spreading across the stars. The war had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy had expected humanity to stop after defending its colonies, but they were wrong. Humanity had not forgotten centuries of betrayal, and now that their fleets were awake, they would not rest until the stars themselves bore witness to their fury. The first strikes had shaken the council, but what came next would terrify the galaxy. The humans did not wait for another invasion, they carried the war into enemy space. Their fleets moved like shadows, never where they were expected to be, appearing in systems thought to be safe, striking at outposts, shipyards, and supply convoys. Entire colonies woke to alarms as human warships descended, their black hulls cutting across the sky like blades. These attacks were not mindless destruction, every move was calculated. Humans crippled fuel depots, shattered communication relays, and burned supply routes. They were dismantling the council's power piece by piece, striking not only with weapons but with strategy. To the council, it felt like fighting an enemy that could see into their minds. Armadas sent to defend one world would arrive only to find nothing, while elsewhere a human fleet was already tearing through undefended targets. Council leaders screamed in rage, but their rage meant nothing against an enemy that seemed to always be ahead. The aliens soon realized the war was no longer on the edge of human space, it was spreading across the stars. Whole sectors that had once mocked Earth were now under siege. Colonies that laughed at humanity's weakness were burning. Planets that voted against helping Earth centuries ago now saw their skies filled with fire. Yet what unsettled the galaxy most was that humanity did not act like conquerors. They did not wipe out civilian populations. They targeted only military and strategic points, but they made sure everyone watched. Survivors were left alive on purpose, so they could tell the story, so they could spread the fear. "The humans are coming," whispered refugees as they fled from system to system. "Nothing can stop them." The word spread faster than the war itself, until even worlds untouched by battle trembled in dread. For the first time, the council itself began to fracture. Some members demanded peace at any cost, others demanded total extermination of Earth, but no one could agree. While they argued, human fleets kept advancing. Blink drives carried them through enemy defenses with ease, and their weapons cut through fleets as if they were nothing. Council soldiers, once proud and confident, now fought with hesitation, because every time they faced humans, they lost. Even worse, stories spread of captured alien weapons being used against their own fleets. Somehow, humanity was adapting faster than anyone thought possible, turning the tools of the galaxy back on those who abandoned them. It was as if Earth had become a mirror, reflecting the cruelty of the stars back upon them. On one world, the people looked up and saw the behemoth-class warship known as the Black Horizon blotting out their sun. It did not fire immediately. It hovered in silence, its shadow swallowing cities, until finally a message echoed across every device on the planet. Earth remembers. Then the bombardment began, precise and unstoppable. On another world, alien rulers begged for mercy, sending desperate messages into the void. The humans replied with silence, and then their fleets arrived, dismantling orbital defenses before vanishing again into the black. The Council tried to call allies to its side, but many worlds refused. Why die for leaders who had already failed? Why fight humanity, when humanity had already proven it could not be beaten? Smaller empires secretly sent envoys to Earth, offering alliance, offering surrender, offering anything that might spare them from the flames. But Earth was not listening to bribes. They were delivering a message, and every strike across the stars made that message louder. The fire of war spread until entire regions were no longer under Council control. Human banners flew on worlds that had once sneered at their weakness. Children on alien planets now whispered stories of human war ghosts, ships that came from the dark and vanished into the void. Fear became a weapon sharper than any blade. And the Council knew the truth. The humans were not fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for dominance. The galaxy had turned its back on Earth, and now Earth was burning the galaxy's arrogance in return. But still, one question haunted the Council. If humanity was this strong already, if their fleets were this advanced, how much more were they hiding? What else had they built in the dark, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash? That fear gnawed at every leader, because every victory the Council thought possible had already turned to ash. The galaxy that once mocked Earth now trembled under the fire of its revenge, and all could see that this was only the beginning. The war had spread like wildfire, and the galaxy could no longer pretend that humanity was just a minor threat. The silent armada moved from sector to sector, burning supply chains, crushing fleets, and shattering the illusion of Council control. Everywhere they went, they left behind not just wreckage, but fear. The name of Earth was now whispered in every marketplace, every colony, every command center. Ordinary citizens trembled when they heard it. Children on alien worlds asked their parents if the humans would come tonight, if the black ships would blot out their sky. Even the mighty admirals of the Council began to hesitate when ordered to fight, for they had already seen what happened to those who dared to stand in Earth's path. Entire fleets vanished without trace, destroyed in ambushes so swift that no distress call was sent. The Council tried to hide the truth, but the truth spread faster than their lies. It spread with refugees, broken soldiers, and silent ruins. And so the galaxy trembled, waiting for the next blow. The Council itself was breaking apart. Once, it had stood as the symbol of order and power. Now it was a house of arguments and fear. Factions shouted at one another across the great chamber. Some demanded surrender, some demanded peace talks, others screamed for revenge. But the Council could not agree, and while they fought with words, humanity fought with fire. Delegates who had once mocked Earth now avoided speaking its name. Some planets even began withdrawing from the Council, declaring neutrality, or worse, pledging quiet allegiance to humanity. The balance of power that had lasted for centuries was crumbling, and everyone could see who was responsible. Earth was no longer a forgotten backwater. Earth was the storm at the center of the galaxy. Still, humanity spoke little. Their silence was more terrifying than their attacks. No demands, no treaties, no explanations. Just war. Some believed humanity sought revenge and nothing more. Others whispered that Earth wanted to replace the Council and rule the stars itself. And some, the most frightened of all, whispered that the humans would never stop until every world that abandoned them was turned to ash. The uncertainty gnawed at the galaxy, and that uncertainty fed the trembling fear that touched every race. On the front lines, alien commanders faced impossible choices. Fight and risk certain death against superior human ships, or retreat and abandon entire colonies. Many chose to retreat. They told themselves it was tactical, but deep down they knew it was fear. And fear spread quickly. Soldiers began deserting, citizens began rioting, and leaders began sending secret messages into the void, begging humanity for mercy. Some worlds went further. They opened their gates before the humans even arrived, lowering defenses and broadcasting surrender signals. Better to kneel than burn. Humanity accepted their surrender in silence, never speaking, never explaining. They simply moved on, striking deeper into Council space, leaving the galaxy to wonder if these surrendered worlds were spared, or marked for later. The Council tried one last gamble. They assembled the largest fleet in generations, drawing ships from every loyal world, a force so massive that the chamber itself trembled when the fleet size was announced. They promised their people that this time, the humans would be stopped. The fleet gathered at the edge of a contested sector, waiting, watching, daring the silent armada to come. And the armada came. But the battle was nothing like the Council expected. Humanity did not meet them head-on. They did not rush into the trap. Instead, they bled the fleet slowly. Blink drives tore through their formation, striking from angles no commander could predict. Communication relays collapsed under sudden jamming. Ship after ship vanished into fire, and when the fleet finally tried to regroup, they found themselves surrounded. The battle ended not with a glorious victory for the Council, but with the wreckage of their greatest fleet drifting in silence, burning wrecks as far as the eye could see. Survivors told the story with broken voices. The humans had fought like shadows, patient and merciless, and when it was over, the Council's last hope had died. When the news spread, the galaxy trembled more than ever before. There was no longer any doubt. Humanity was not just strong, they were unstoppable. Fear gripped entire civilizations. Worlds far from the fighting began to prepare for surrender. Some leaders abandoned their capitals and fled into hiding, terrified that human assassins would find them. Merchants whispered that Earth's fleets could strike anywhere, at any time, even in the core of Council space. And for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy realized that the Council was no longer in control. Humanity was. The betrayal of the past had returned in fire and steel, and now the betrayers cowered in their shining cities, wondering when the humans would finally come for them. But humanity still gave no answer. No words, no peace, no threats. Only silence and the fire of war. And that silence was worse than death, because it left the galaxy in the grip of its own imagination. Every shadow became a human warship. Every rumor became truth. Every star seemed to burn with the promise of Earth's revenge. The galaxy trembled, and deep within that trembling fear, one truth became clear to all. The future no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to humanity. The galaxy was on its knees. Stars that once burned with pride now flickered with fear. The Council's fleets were shattered, their leaders broken, their promises exposed as hollow lies. Entire civilizations lived in silence, waiting, trembling, watching the skies for the black warships of Earth. The humans had struck without warning, without mercy, without words. And yet, even after burning their way across half the galaxy, even after toppling fleets thought to be invincible, humanity had not spoken once. This silence haunted the Council more than the war itself. What did Earth want? Why were they doing this? Would they ever stop? Rumors spread like fire in the void. Some said the humans wanted to erase the Council completely. Others believed they wanted to rule in its place. And some whispered the darkest fear, that Earth wanted revenge so complete that it would never end. For months, the galaxy shook under this fear. But then came the day when Earth finally broke its silence. It happened not on a battlefield, but in the very heart of Council space. The black behemoth warship, the Black Horizon, appeared above the Council capital itself, bypassing every defense, every hidden fortress, every secret shield. One moment the skies were clear, the next they were filled with the colossal shadow of humanity's might. Panic spread through the capital. Sirens screamed, soldiers scrambled, leaders shouted in terror. Yet the warship did not fire. It simply hovered above the planet, blotting out the sun, casting the shining capital into darkness. And then, for the first time, a human voice echoed across every device, every ship, every world connected to the Council's network. It was a voice calm and steady, a voice that carried across the stars, a voice that froze the galaxy in silence. For centuries, you turned your backs on us, the voice said. You left Earth to suffer. You abandoned us to die. You laughed while we bled. You thought we were weak. You thought we were finished. But not anymore. The words spread like fire, replayed on every world, whispered in every corner of the galaxy. The humans did not scream or rage. They spoke with quiet certainty, and that certainty was more terrifying than any weapon. We remember your betrayal, the voice continued. We remember the silence when we begged for help. We remember the walls you built to keep us out. And we remember how you turned away when we needed you most. You thought the galaxy would never answer for that betrayal. But now, the galaxy answers to us. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Leaders who had ruled for centuries sat frozen, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Citizens across the galaxy trembled, hearing the truth spoken in a way no one could deny. Humanity was not asking for mercy. Humanity was not begging for recognition. Humanity was declaring that the old order was finished. The voice grew harder. We are not the broken people you left behind. We are not the forgotten world you once mocked. We are the fire that rises in the dark. We are the storm you cannot stop. We are humanity. And to the galaxy we say this: never again will Earth be abandoned. Never again will we be left behind. Never again will we be weak. You turned your backs on us. But now we turn our faces to you. And we say, not anymore. The words struck like thunder. Across the galaxy, worlds erupted in chaos. Some cheered, some wept, some fell to their knees in despair. In the council capital, the leaders broke into desperate shouts, begging for negotiations, for peace, for survival. But the humans did not answer their cries. The Black Horizon remained above the planet, silent once more, its shadow a constant reminder that the galaxy's time had ended and a new era had begun. The voice had spoken, and the galaxy understood the truth. Earth was no longer asking for a place among the stars. Earth was taking it. From that day forward, the galaxy lived under humanity's shadow. Not every world was destroyed, not every people conquered, but all remembered the words. Not anymore. It became the symbol of Earth's rise, the phrase that carried their power, the warning that no one would ever dare forget. Children grew up hearing the story of the day the galaxy trembled before Earth's voice. Soldiers whispered it before battles, leaders repeated it in fear when making choices. The galaxy had betrayed Earth once, but never again. Humanity had made sure of that. The council was broken, the old order shattered, and a new age had begun. An age where humanity no longer stood forgotten, no longer stood alone, but stood as the storm that reshaped the stars. And so the story of Earth was no longer one of betrayal. It was a story of revenge, of strength, of defiance. A story the galaxy would never forget. A story written in fire across the stars, ending with two words that echoed through eternity: not anymore.